So when it comes to the church, when people come to church now, they kind of know more than what the pastor used to saying to us, because a lot of this information wasn't available to us prior 30 or 40 years ago, when the pastor was just coming from a theological point of view behind the pulpit, doing a lot of hooping and hollering, harmonics, you know what I'm saying? The word, the people get wired up in their emotions and stuff like that. That was just that. But now you're talking about the drugs. I think, and I've said this before on Real Life Street Star, Joker, that 99% of the world is on drugs, whether it be behind the counter drugs, street drugs, drugs your doctor prescribed to you, energy drinks, coffee, herbs, anything that alters your pineal gland or alters your whole body and your bloodstream, you're on drugs some type of way. Now when you get hooked on drugs is when you overdosing or you overdoing something that doesn't agree with your body chemistry.
Marijuana is a herbal drug. You know, the Indians use it to have to go to a spiritual place.
Man, you get tired of smoking marijuana before you overdose.
But like even if you have a scar, they use herbs, natural herbs to heal yourself.
A drug just basically means it alters
mushrooms. Mushrooms exist. You know, you can eat a rotten mushroom.
Certain cultures used to eat mushrooms and things like that in their culture to become psychedelic, and really it enhances or it activates your pineal gland. That's all they do. And
should we all indulge in that?
No, that was part of certain cultures. I would say if it's not prescribed to you, then you need to find out that if your body can chemically handle shit like that, because you got fentanyl out there, you got other stuff out there that people are taking that's overdosing for.
Yeah, so, I mean the man-made stuff.
That's why I say. That's why I say.
Hold on. Let me plug this in. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Let me plug it in. I want you to. You gonna bring us home. You gonna bring us home.
Yeah, we're gonna bring us all home. Well, we talking about the 10 Commandments in the schools too.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. I'm gonna backtrack on that.
All right,
because I was just basically gonna say the 10 Commandments is 10 of those commandments. It's good they putting it back in school because we need order and structure. Because without order, that's chaos.
All right, stay right there.
Yeah, no, I got it. Okay, that's in me.
Is it my head? Hey, Will, you in here? What's up? All right, what's good? What's good with it, baby? Yeah, I'm doing all right. Give me one sec. I'm out there. I'll let you. Hold on. Pop this in. All right.
Man, I needed to give my teachers some shout outs, man.
Thank you. You know, whenever you're able to, that's always a blessing.
Yeah. Because they definitely influenced me a lot.
All right, so I have to ask a question as far as lastly, when it comes to teachings and basically, again, going to schools and saying, hey, this is religion, this is what you need to follow, especially in the Western world, America.
Right.
They start with the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. They say this, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, all those things. They started trying to pull that out of schools as far as just, hey, no more praying. No more, of course, the Pledge of Allegiance, hand on your chest, that's for, nationality, but no more saying a prayer beginning of school. That design itself, is that the government trying to say, hey, we don't need religion right now because we're America, we're open to all religion, and we're not trying to hone in on one? Or do you feel like it's a more sinister agenda there?
No, I think it's good they put the 10 Commandments back into school because, like I said, 10 of those commandments in comparison from its peripheral from the 42 admonitions of Ma'at. And so these are basically laws of order. You know what I'm saying? Because if you start taking order out of any society, it's going to become chaotic. And so if you start taking the 10 Commandments, prayer, any type of consciousness of something divine out of human society, then it's going to become chaotic. So you got to put those 10 Commandments back in there. You got to put prayer back in there. So that's one thing I can say America has to get back to, because they know the government won't even be able to control an uncontrolled society. And so they've made it out of a man law as well as a God law.
Do you know the 10 Commandments?
Well, I just verbatim, it's a whole lot. I know about 4 or 5 of them off the top of my dome.
Is there any one of them that you feel is like just unnecessary?
You shouldn't have no other gods before you. Like I said, I explained that. The majority of them is just basically, I would say, religious commandments that you can live in this earth without, I would say, going to jail for. You know what I'm saying? Let's say coveting another man's wife. Now, we know in God's eyes, coveting another man's wife, you're going to reap karma for that and things like that. But you can covet another man's wife and sleep with another man's wife, or a woman can sleep with another man's husband and not go to jail for it.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying? But in the eyes of God, that's forbidden. You know what I'm saying? So if you practice that doctrine or if you live by that principle, universal principle, then you have God's law, then you have man's law. You know what I'm saying? So that's why sometimes they coexist. Now, thou shalt not kill is a God law and a man's law, but that goes hand in hand. Because thou shalt not kill, you're going to get in trouble with God. You know what I'm saying? And thou shalt not kill, you're going to get in trouble with man, which goes in. That's why I sometimes like the Hindu faith, because they believe in consequences. They believe in karma. If you do something, then you got to reap karma. If you do it intentionally. You know what I'm saying? And so even the Bible killed. Even God killed in the Old Testament. So it was a time for everything. So it just depends in the nature of the killing and how the killing took place, depending on how it was judged, how it should be judged.
Yeah, no, without question, man. With that being said,
man, we gotta have more of these.
Yeah, we gotta have more of these.
I'm talking about.
We just scratching the surface. So for those that do want to follow and see what you got going on and understand the world you coming from, how can they follow you? How can they get get into your world?
Listen, man, I'm a believer, man. I know I might, I'm a little unorthodox, and I would just say I'm peculiar. In the Bible, I like to use universal principles from the Bible. That's one that I was exposed to, so I started reading the Bible first. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, it says, we are peculiar people. We are a royal priesthood. We are a chosen generation. We've been called out of darkness into God's marvelous light. And so when it comes to being conscious, then I'm open to consciousness. I've been born again through consciousness. I ain't been born again. When I was introduced to the church, I was born again through what they call the Jesus Christ, because that's the only doctrine I understood. But once I started to go beyond and study the scriptures, precept on precept and the word on precept, then I began to see the timeline on which it was brought. I began to see how man put their hands and had involved into it. So I began to study, and my consciousness became more aware. So my sense that I use the most is not just the touch, the feel, the taste. Those are natural senses. But the senses I use the most is my divine sense, which is my goddamn common sense. And if it don't make sense to me, it don't make sense. So if I can't connect 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 with what you just told me, and you went from 1 to 3, then that shit don't make sense. And you're gonna have to have facts to support what the fuck you talking about. Other than that, Dooney the priest ain't trying to hear it, man, because I love God. I believe that I'm chosen, and the way that I act, I know it's a little peculiar. I know it's a little unorthodox. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I've been chosen. I've been put on an assignment. And my assignment is not your assignment, Joe.
Come on, man.
Your assignment is not my assignment. But both of our assignment has caused us to cross paths.